Hi to your mommy. She's pretty. Gotta find it in. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's Shonnie B, and this video is going to be about Jeremiah's NICU stay. So tune in. If you haven't checked out part 1 and 2 of my birth story, there will be links at the bottom in the comment section as well as at the end, so that way you guys can catch up on the birth story. But this is all about little Jeremiah. Say hi, Jeremiah. Before delivery, we talked with the neonatologist about what to expect when he goes into the NICU and what they would do and everything. And so I included pictures in this video to show and highlight some of the things that happened. Prior to delivery, I did receive a 3rd shot of betamethasone. So I had received the 2 shots when I was admitted, like 3 weeks before he was born. But then they wanted to give me another one before delivery. So I did have that shortly after I got to labor and delivery. So when he was born, he was pretty pink, I think. But then his oxygen started to like dip, and so they ended up giving him some O2 and giving him CPAP, which you'll see in the pictures. Once they got him situated on the warmer, because I was able to hold him when he came. When he was first born, they put him on my chest and, they dried him off and everything. And then they moved him to the warmer to get him stable and to give him the CPAP and everything. And then once they got all of that situated and wrapped him up and everything, then I was able to hold him for a few minutes before they took him to the NICU. They took him to the NICU. My husband went with them to the NICU to take pictures and video and FaceTime me while he was getting all tucked in and all situated. And then I started pumping shortly after. So I think part of the reason why my milk production in the beginning was so much was because I started pumping not long after delivery. So like same day, and I had like 3 syringes to send down to the NICU before the end of the day. That's not typical, and don't feel pressure to have a lot of milk on the first day, because typically your milk comes in on like day 3, and then everything else is just like, little varying amounts of like colostrum. So yeah, so after that, the NICU like gave my husband a little sheet to know, so he can know what to expect, like when to come down and how to get in contact and everything. And then as soon as I could not go to the NICU until I was off magnesium. I was off magnesium the next morning at about 8:20, and so from that point I went down there. And the first thing I try to go during his touch times, care times, which is when the nurses will do his cares, like when they would, check his temperature and his vital signs and change his diaper and feed him and do an assessment and everything. So I went down there for the first feeding, and I want to say, I think I did skin to skin on that day. I'm pretty sure I did. And then we tried to be hands-on as much as possible, especially during those touch times. And then when I would hold him skin to skin, or when I was just holding him in general, I tried to hold him like at least for the hour. They say for a full sleep cycle is best for them. And that's what I would try to do, and which I pretty much did every time I went down there, just because I was like, there's no way I'm just going to be in my room. And it's kind of hard, like when you are recovering from childbirth and your child is in NICU, like you just want to be there like as much as possible, but at the same time you have to remember, and I had to remember, that I have to take care of me in order to take care of him. And so it doesn't help him if my blood pressure is still high and I'm like, my legs look like elephant legs, and I'm not taking care of myself. So a lot of times I had to say, okay, like I'm going to sleep, or I'm going to rest, or, sometimes when the doctors would come in to check on me, I was at the NICU, I was down in the NICU each time they came in. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back upstairs and I'm going to just rest, and I will come back later, that night. I'll give the doctors a chance to catch up with me. So So that's an important thing to remember if you're a NICU parent or if your baby's in the NICU, like take care of you too, because they're being taken care of. They're going to thrive and grow. But you want to take care of yourself as well. So, and then he was on CPAP. So the day he was born, he was on CPAP, and then, which was giving him that pressure support. Um, he was on that until the next day, on May 8th, because he was born on May 7th. And so on May 8th, they put him on the high flow nasal cannula because he was doing so well. He didn't have any events. And by events, I mean like he didn't have any oxygen dips or needed any increase in oxygen or anything like that. So they went ahead and moved him to the high flow nasal cannula. And then he came off of that May 10th, so like a couple days later. And then he was, he did, once he came off of that, he was good. They moved his feeding tube from his mouth to his nose. And then he was able to start feeding by mouth after the high flow nasal cannula was at 2 liters. So initially, Jeremiah was nothing by mouth, and he had the IV, which you can see in the pictures. He had an IV. He had the OG feeding tube. So he was NPO except for the IV fluids, and then they slowly increased his feeding tube volume, or his feeding tube volumes. So like when he first started eating, they started off at 5 mLs every 3 hours, and then increased that to 10, and then I forget the next increase after that. But before he left, it was a minimum of 35, but he can have anything over 35. So, but it started slow, and then the frequency also started slow. So the speech therapist saw him, and then they fed him first to see if he was ready to feed, and to see the readiness of it. And he was like, I have a video which I can include in this this video, where he was kind of like, gnawing at his hands and turning and rooting and everything. Not gnawing, but he was like rooting. And so so she fed him with the preemie nipple with the Dr. Brown's bottle, and he did really good. And so from there, after she did the first feeding, like he could eat like once a shift. If he was, I think it was just once a shift, and then it went from once a shift to twice a shift, and then after that it went to he can eat every single care time or breastfeed if he was queuing. And then after that, the volumes just increased. And so he did really good. Like, I personally was a little bit reserved because I'm like, okay, I'm excited. I'm happy that he's doing so well. But being a previous NICU nurse, I'm like, I don't want to get too excited, because what tends to happen is like they do so good in the beginning, especially like 34 weekers. They do so good in the beginning, and then they get tired and they don't do as well. And then they have to have they end up needing the feeding tube longer, or if you've already taken it out, you got to put it back in because they need that rest, because they did everything they could, and then now they're just like, I can't do it no more. I don't know what to do. I was cautiously optimistic, and so I was, telling my husband and my family, I was like, okay, he's doing good, but this is really good. We're happy, but we gotta be, he might stop this, little trend that he's on, and he might, take a couple steps back before he's good. But he didn't, and he kept going, and he's doing good now. So from there, so with the feeding and everything, so he did good. Like, he always ate what he was supposed to, and then when it moved to the minimum of 35 and he can have anything over, he was always doing over, like in the 40s, 50s. So he was ready to eat. Like, he was doing good. And then he also saw occupational therapy. They did some stretches with him, and then they determined that he needed the gel pillow to help with the position, to help with the shaping of his head, because one side was flat. So it seemed like he was like laying on I think it was the left side more in the womb than he was on the right. And so it was a little bit flat. And so we did the gel pillow for a while. And then after that, closer to discharge, she was like, yeah, it looks a little bit better. And even now, I kind of look at it and I'm like, it looks like one side is still kind of flatter than the other, but his doctor recently said everything was okay, so, or it looks good right now, so we're just gonna keep an eye on it. And then, so after all of that, he transitioned from the incubator to the open crib. And to do that, you know, part of that, the criteria for that was the weight, his weight. I forget how much he weighed. He was like I don't know, he was 4 pounds and so double digit ounces. He was good weight wise. His temperature had to be good. And then I think he had to be off of the CPAP and all that, but he was. So those were the main things. So yeah, he went to the open crib, and when I walked in, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh. I mean, things happen so fast for him. Like, you know, I was like preparing mentally for like the long haul, because they told me like, okay, a minimum of 2 weeks, a maximum of his original due date, which was like June 17th. So I'm like, I'm coming down like every day. I'm coming at least for 3 feedings out of on the day shift, and one of the night shift feedings. So I'm up there like at least 4 times a day. And I mean, I would come in the next day and things would change so quickly. And I'm like, what? He's like, when I walked in and saw him in the open crib, I'm like, oh gosh, it's only a matter of time. Like, please don't have no events, don't have no apnea spells, no heart rate dips, no oxygen dips. Like, let's get home. So, yeah, so he did good. And so another thing I think contributed to it was allowing him to rest in between feedings. Because I know like it's like so easy to want to go in or be there during like for a certain period of time, like from 9 to 12 or 9 to 3, and then to touch at him, pick at him like in between the feeding times. But we tried our hardest not to do that, like to let him rest, so that way he could feed well at his next feeding. So we tried our hardest, and even at home we had to still keep up with that whole like letting him rest and get a sound sleep, because he would start to eat his minimum and then sometimes a little bit below his minimum, and I'm like, okay, he's getting, you know, he's not getting enough rest, enough restful sleep. So milestones that he had to reach for discharge. So he had to be breathing on his own. And then for him, you know, breathing on his own, because some babies go home on oxygen, but for Jeremiah, he had to be breathing on his own. No events, and I don't know if you heard me say like events is like any apnea spells, any oxygen dips, or heart rate dips. Can't have any of those in the recent date, and you know, before discharge, because then if you have one, and that adds on days to your stay. His temperature was stable. He was tolerating his feedings. I don't think he spit up at all. I don't think he spit up at all in the NICU. Not that I saw. I didn't see any spit up. But and then of course he had to know how to eat. So the suck, swallow, breathe. And so what was important with that was knowing how to pace him and how to do the side lying and feeding him. And so I had to teach my husband. When he was in the NICU, I did it all. But when we got home, I had to teach my husband how to do it, because yeah, I have to take care of me too. I have to rest and shower and all that stuff, get sleep. And then they wanted to make sure he was gaining weight, so he didn't lose too much weight. And that he was taking his full feeding volume. And then he also had a car seat test. You'll also see a picture in the little pictures that I put together, that he was on the bilirubin lights. His bilirubin was like 0.1 over what was required to be put on bilirubin lights, or phototherapy. And so they just erred on the side of caution and put him on it. And then I believe he was off like the next day or the next 2 days. I forget how long he was on there. I don't think it was long. I think it was only like a day or day and a half. And then he had his car seat test. So same thing, no events while he's in the car seat. And they did a circumcision the day before he discharged. So he was supposed to go home. So I talked to one NP on Friday. She's like, oh, he can discharge tomorrow. You know what you're doing. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get the circ done and he can go home Saturday. But she wasn't there Saturday. And so the next NP was like, yeah, we want to see how he does after he gets his circumcision done. And I was so disappointed because I'm like, really? It's just a day. Like, I know how to feed him, and if I couldn't feed him, I know to, you know, bring him, you know, to the ER or whatever. But she was like, no, she wanted to see how he did after the circ. And then on top of that, she thought that he had a weight issue, but then she came back later and was like, oh, it was the wrong patient that had the weight issue. That's not your child. So I'm like, okay. So anyway, it was just one extra night because I got there early Saturday. I was there like 8 a.m. or right at 9 or something like that. So, but anyways, he came home on Mother's Day. So, and I was there bright and early and they got everything. I mean, discharge was quick. So I got to bring him home and yeah. So, and now Jeremiah is thriving. You guys will see him in the videos to come, but I'll include some pictures. But yeah, he's thriving now. He's 10 pounds and 4.5 ounces. He was born at 5 pounds and 1 ounce. He was 17 inches at birth and now he's 21 inches. He's drinking about 3.5 to 4 ounces right now. During the day he goes about every 3 hours and at night he goes about every 4. So he's doing good. He's doing really good. So we don't have any issues right at the moment. So thank you guys for watching my birth story. I appreciate you guys watching my birth stories part 1 and 2. This is the finale, part 3, which is Jeremiah's NICU stay. So I will put a link to the part 1 and 2 in the comments or in the description box. So thanks for watching and I will talk to you guys later.